Greetings. My name is Craig Volland. I'm a member of the All Souls Unitarian Universalist Forum Committee. The forum goes back to 1943. That's how long we've been doing it. And the mission of the forum is to afford a platform for the discussion of significant issues, especially those which involve ethical values in the contemporary world, and also to promote critical thinking. Today we're privileged to have actually the second part of a two-part series. Today we have Marty Kraft and Stan Slaughter to talk about work in the metro Kansas City area towards soil regeneration. Last week we talked about some of the basics of soil regeneration, and it was very interesting. So I think Stan is going to start out. So take it away, Stan.
Thanks, Craig. My name is Stan Slaughter. I'm the Director of Outreach and Education for Missouri Organic Recycling. And healthy soil, healthy food, healthy people. And what it means a lot is that we're dependent on microbes. Some people have made the point that about 90% of the cells in our body aren't human. And therefore, it's walking around like Hotel California, and we're the guests. And so what we've done to our microbes, our microflora, the soil, the bacteria in the soil, the bacteria in our bodies at the root tip is a travesty, and getting it back involves essentially dealing with all of those critters. So I'm going to show a video that we produced, and as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, this is about 4,600 pictures. So I'm going to stop it, narrate through it.
We've been doing food waste compost since 2005. Until today, you're looking at 465 million pounds of food waste we've composted. That's enough food waste to fill Arrowhead Stadium. So this nature-wise compost is the material we put back in the community that goes from farm to table to compost, back to farm, back to table again. This is completing the circle.
So Missouri Organic is the public-private partner with the city of Kansas City. All the brown paper yard waste bags come to us. Most of the landscaping materials and refuse from the trees and brush come to us, and we sell about 170,000 cubic yards of mulch every year and about 75,000 cubic yards of compost every year. And all that compost is fermented. And that means we've increased the bacterial content an enormous amount. And compost is essentially an inoculant. The problem is that everything rots and it all turns to carbon dioxide and disappears into the air. But if we compost it, 35% of the total amount of organic matter is fixed in compost. We do lose 65% to carbon dioxide, but we would have lost it all. So that 35% can go in and stimulate plant growth, serve as a bacterial inoculant into the soil, and help sequester more carbon as it works to feed the plants and help them do their job even better. So this whole idea of fermented is very important. Marty's going to talk about a Johnson-Su fermentation that ends up with a fungal material. This is primarily a bacterial material, but in any case, adding those microbes back into the soil is a good deal.
We are one of 10 facilities in the United States that has one of these machines, this Tiger depackager. We are the only facility in the United States that does it this way. So as you can see behind me, the plastic is falling on the floor. It goes to waste to energy. The food waste gets pumped into tanks that you've seen, and then into the mixer.
I want to stop right there. This yellow stream you see is the food waste slurry. That's a polite word. It's quite odoriferous, but it is food that we've depackaged in that blue machine called the Tiger. We take about 60 gallons of water a minute, add that to the material that is sliced. It's not ground, it's sliced like a spiral slicing machine. And then the cardboard and the plastic are blown out. And so what we do is very carefully, he said, we're the only company in the world that does it in the country that does it this way, probably the world. But what we do is by the time we've turned our food waste into a micro liquid, in other words, no big particles or solids, and then mixed it thoroughly. This red mixture is a completely unusual thing. We had to design it and order it ourselves. It's about a 35 cubic yard mixer. And it spends enough time in there that the liquid food and the ground up leaves are mixed surface to surface, completely engaged in each other. And the idea is that gives an enormous greater surface area. This pile will be at 160 degrees in 2 days. So it's encourages really rapid composting and hot composting, which of course kills all the weed seeds and disease bacteria. I want to back up here and just do a little bit of sliding. Behind Kevin are 3 tanks that hold 26,000 gallons of food waste. If you can imagine the intricacies of having the supply come in and taking the time to run it through the machine, or the machine breaks down, or we don't get our food waste in on time, or whatever. These 26,000 gallons is a buffer between our supply and our needs, so we can continue to make compost at full speed throughout the time. Also, if you can imagine this food waste, a giant tank like this would go anaerobic very quickly. Kevin himself designed a system that blows high pressure air into the bottoms of the tanks and aerates the tank and keeps it from going anaerobic and producing methane gas. So it's the engineering and the mechanical expertise of the Anderson family. Kevin and his brother are the main operators. His dad started the company. And so they're extremely capable. And by the way, this plastic is mixed with ground up used pallets, refuse pallets, and that the nails are magnetized and out. That's mixed 85% pallets, 15% wet plastic and cardboard, and that goes to a cement kiln to be refuse derived fuel. And what that means is that nothing goes to waste. There's no landfill truck leaving Missouri Organic. And that's a very high premium for large companies who want to get rid of their waste in the most environmental correct way. They hire brokers, and those brokers look for zero waste to landfill disposal options. And we have that now here, which is not easy to pull off, but also an attractive thing for customers. So we are not short of people who want to come to our facilities. If you can see the semi in the background, that semi is from Hutchinson, Kansas. And we, about a year ago, picked up the Kroger food chain, all the Krogers and Dillons. The food goes out to Hutchinson, is distributed throughout their chain. The food waste comes back to Hutchinson, is collected and shipped to us in 1 and sometimes 2 semis per day. So we're now collecting between 20 and 40 tons of food waste a day, which is a pretty amazing amount. This, I call it the coral reef. It's a semicircle of bumps of compost, holds about 3,000 yards of compost. It represents something that takes us about a week to produce, but we slowly move that over into the windrows and turn it from here.
Takes about 6 to 8 weeks. And then all the stuff you see behind me also is going to waste to energy. So it goes to a cement plant where it gets burned for energy.
From the very beginning of this site, Missouri Organic has been a partner with us. So we've gotten, hundreds of yards of compost. We've gotten wood chips. Basically any resource that we've asked for, they've always they've always been here to deliver and help us get this project going.
Yeah, that took maybe 20 minutes with the blower, so pretty cool.
The blower truck is quite unusual. We're getting a lot of requests now for people wanting this material placed exactly. You know, the options are come to our facility, let us fill up your truck, go home, unload it yourself, and place it yourself. The other one is we'll deliver it to your place up with a minimum of 3 yards, and we'll dump it in your driveway. And then this third thing gives us a new option where we can literally feather it in, make clean lines, draw great circles in your yard for mulch rings, and do it quickly and quietly and place this. So this is a new technique, which is allowing many more people to participate.
So, pretty cool.
In 2011, the Kansas City Chiefs started collecting organic materials from Arrowhead Stadium. We've partnered for over 9.
So this is a drone view of our facility down by Liberty. It's out in the middle of the cornfields in the Missouri River bottoms. We have 13 windrows on each side, so 26 windrows total. If you look right here where it says tons, there's a fog of smoke. And what that smoke is the red hot 160-degree breath of the bacteria that are digesting our compost. And what happens is the organic material and the nitrogen fertilizer, the food waste, feed these bacteria a terrific diet, and they eat everything. They eat all they can eat. They run out of food and they die. And half the weight of our compost is the dead skins of the bacteria that ate the compost. That's when it's finished, when everything has been eaten. Half of it is minerals. The other half is organic matter. And that's the delicate, highly refined foods that plants really need. That's why compost causes plants to grow really rapidly. And that's the bacterial synthesis and then the death of the bacteria that cause this to be so rich.
9 years with Missouri Organic and collected over 1,261 tons of organics. We challenge our fans not only to help us compost at Arrowhead Stadium, but also in their daily lives.
Chiefs did something that's very unusual. They worked with the BASF and their peanut manufacturer. And every food item in Arrowhead Stadium, to my knowledge, is capable of being thrown into the compost, except the peanut wrappers. So in the last 5 years, they've had this peanut bag that they manufactured that was strong enough to hold the peanuts and be thrown, but also could go in empty or full into the compost and decompose completely. So we've actually kind of spurred some major innovations with plastics with our partnerships with the Chiefs.
I'm the educational arm for Missouri Organic Recycling. About a year ago, we built a poster, a diagram called Food Too Good to Waste. It's kind of the ideal food recovery system for Kansas City. We're using the poster, the song, and the website to teach kids all over the metro and all over the country. Adults too. It's win, 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 win. When you do things right, the benefits kind of cascade. Yo, I got a story about a problem we are facing. We're creating and maintaining a big mess across the nation. It's a problem with the food. Almost half is wasted, left till it's outdated. Goodness never tasted it. Food too good to waste. It starts with preparation, the peeling and the chopping, work that must be done. Not a lot of fun, but the battle to be won is to keep it out of the dump. Food too good to waste. 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 Yeah.
Well, that's the video. We wanted to make present what we're doing with education partner Katie White and I took the Kansas State Science Standards that all teachers have to pass with their kids as they go through a unit, and wrote them into lessons on composting. And there's 4 lessons and 4 10-minute YouTube videos that can serve that. And so we got a grant from KDHE to serve 50 schools the first year, which was 2020, which was a terrible year in terms of COVID and problems like that. We ended up serving 44 schools. And we've got kids that are composting their entire cafeteria's food waste in big bins out there in Kansas. We've got a lot of activities of all kinds, testing and student activism, relationships between local suppliers like hardware stores, helping to support schools programs. That got funded the second year. We're finishing up the second year with the state of Kansas. And it's a program that's unusual and completely unique across the country. Another one is we just did our outreach with the first ever national compost fest at the Cultivate Kansas City Westport Gardens. And we had a bobcat. Marty brought his shredder. We shredded probably about 14 cubic yards of material, mixed it with food waste from the Compost Collective and beer dregs from KC Beer Co., and had volunteers mix all that up, and a bobcat on site with a volunteer, Mark Kaland, that turned all that in. And in the afternoon, we had all kinds of educational material, including Marty did his demonstration with the Johnson Sioux composter. Unfortunately, that was last Saturday and I was in the hospital. But what's going on right now is something very unusual, and we thought it would be a great way to get people interested and also to show off more of Missouri Organics products, and that is something we're calling the Climate Friendly Yard Makeover. And we are literally going to pick 3 metro area residents and make over their yard with a raised bed garden, better lawn, better functioning lawn with deeper roots and more nutrient transport and more aeration. A berm and a swale to hold water on a steep hillside, a food forest, a prairie patch, pollinator gardens, all kinds of permaculture type techniques, some, not all, but 8 or 9 modalities that we can apply to a yard. We have 3 major designers in the Kansas City area who are going to help produce these 3 designs. We have famous farmer Dan Krull, who's an expert in all things organic. He's going to be our MC. And we're literally going to produce some videos about how people can do something in their yard. We're finding enormous interest in this. We have 33 applicants now, and Green Ability is about to publish it. And we think we'll get a lot more. So we're doing a lot here at Missouri Organic to bring this literacy to our public, and also we think collect and divert food waste from 300 sources in the metro. Marty, I'm handing it off.
Marty Kraft. I'm doing what I'm doing for my grandchildren. I love this planet, and I want it to persist. And I know it looks bleak, but I don't necessarily believe in bleak. Believe in hope, and so. And I'm sort of more grassrootsy in terms of my activities. Let me share my screen, and I can kind of let this guide me through. I'm not a very organized person. Well, here we are. Regenerative agriculture. Teaming with nature for survival. Life is good. and nature is us. There's no separation. And that's deep within us. That's deep within our world view here in the West. If you look at where European languages are spoken, and why the fact that no indigenous languages are spoken there. But I got this guy over here. I'm kind of picking his nose now, but it's the great peacemaker from the Iroquois that was the star of Earth Day 1992. So this is where I live. I thought I'd like to show you my home. Perhaps you share one like that. Anyway, the plants and the microbes, plants with the aid of the sun, with photosynthesis, and pumped sugars into the ground, and fed the microbes, and the microbes served the plants. And so, and they created the life on Earth as we know it today, and they could redo it if we would get out of their way and change our agricultural practices and change our practices on our lawns. It comes right down to your front yard. So let's see. Here's a kind of a photograph of this mycelial network in the soil. And that's all that white stuff in the soil is carbon. That little pine seedling up above is generating photosynthesis and generating sugars, and those sugars are pumped down to feed those that network, plus bacteria that are between them and all the other critters. And that makes a soil carbon sponge. When these things break down, they turn into a glue called glomalin, and that holds the soil together and makes a soil carbon sponge, which can hold a tremendous amount of water, which essentially extends the photosynthetic period that a plant can keep pumping, sequestering carbon in the soil. So Christine Jones, one of my mentors, says that every 12 months, 50% of agricultural land is left barren. So that means it gets hot. If you walked out on the pavement when it's hot in the summer, you can't, barefooted, it hurts. And you jump quick to get in the car or whatever. So so that means there's a tremendous amount of heat. Light is turned into the heat as it hits the soil, and it kills the microbes, the very guys that are sequestering carbon. So we need to overhaul our agricultural system. So let's see. About 4 years ago, I learned about this Johnson Sioux bioreactor. A husband and wife figured it out, and he's a PhD in, I'm not sure what he's a PhD in, but he's got a lot of science, and I've listened to his videos. I have to listen to him 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, in order to and take notes and try to get it going. So says I'm screen sharing. I guess that's all right. Okay, so let's see. So I was excited about this, excited to build it and to try to pass it on. So in the last few years, I've made 22 of these in different yards and organizations, and I'll show you some of those here in a second. And then, but last December, not this last December, before last, I ran into this guy. Walter Yenny. He's from Australia, and he is quite a lecturer. If I had had him as a teacher, my life might have changed a whole different way. But he offered me a great deal of hope for the future of the Earth, because he says that about 5% of the world's climate is due to carbon dioxide, and 95% is due to water. And if you look up at the clouds, you can kind of see that that makes a whole lot of sense. And he also says that we have screwed up the soils, and that he's got some ideas about recreating the soil carbon sponge, which I referred to earlier. And then if we do that, we can put a lot of moisture in the ground, which increases the longevity of photosynthesis, which increases the longevity of the sequestration of carbon. So he's into sequestering carbon, but he's saying there's this big part, this barren land, and the fact that, I live in an urban wilderness, which is forested, and people walk into there on the way up to the front porch, and they claim they're astounded at how cool it is, and minus a small window air conditioning in one office, we don't have AC in the summer. We depend on the tree cover, and so we've heard about the heat island effect. Well, the heat island effect extends to all that agricultural land that's left bare. So we need to do cover crops, and so we need to buy from farmers who are doing regenerative ag. So what I found was that this is ideal for regenerating the soil carbon sponge, because this favors fungal development rather than bacterial development. And so this little guy, this thing here, let me show you another slide here. Here's Antioch Urban Growers. We have, we made one up there, and it's got tubes. It goes down through the composter, which leaves a lot of air. And you can barely see the corner of it back in here, but there's a big tub, and we just soak those leaves in water till they're just sopping wet. And then we shovel them, fork them into this thing around the tubes. And then the second day out, we pull these tubes out, which leaves chimneys in this composter of an air tubes. And then if we look at another installation over here, we see that there's a pallet underneath, and the tubes have been removed on this, and the pallet lets air in, and there's holes in the pallet that coincide with those tubes. So air can come through and up, and we've been wearing masks for a couple of years, at least I have, and so there's stuff in the air. There's organisms in the air. They're always there. And so over a period of a year, you don't turn this compost, you just leave it sit, and you wet it. You keep it wet, and in this case here, we've made a set of pallets behind it to reflect heat onto it, so that in those really cold times, it can stay at a temperature where the microbes aren't frozen, for one thing. And down here we've got a hot composter. This is a tote cut in half, and we're putting leaves and beer leavings from brewing beer in there to make a hot compost, and then this tube leads up under the composter to keep it from freezing. So let's see, meanwhile, back at an earlier slide here. So what we're doing is creating a fungal-rich compost with this bioreactor, which is exactly what Walter Yenny is talking about here. And then, but that's not enough. You got to keep this going. Like on the prairie, the buffalo kept roaming. They didn't quit after one season. So they kept inoculating and inoculating and inoculating. So we're into this for a long haul. Now, Christine Jones here says that we can keep this going better if we have different types of plants planted together. And so it kind of puts the kibosh on the monoculture. And so if you can integrate these kinds of things, these different plants, each plant has a different microbe population or community, as she calls them, because they have quorum sensing. They can sense a quorum. When they reach a quorum, they can all turn on and do a function that they cannot do by themselves. So when we walk on our lawn, we're walking on consciousness. We're walking on sentient beings. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't walk on your lawn. I'm just saying we're outclassed. We have more of these guys, as Stan said, we have more of these guys in our intestine than we have human cells, and they can shift and turn genes on and off. So we gotta have respect. Let's see, who else am I going to show you here? There's Nicole Masters from New Zealand. She's kind of in charge of, I think, well, shifting perspectives. We're locked in. We're locked into a culture, this culture that overcame all the indigenous peoples wherever we moved from Europe. And then here's a couple people who are walking the talk, and they're making money, keeping alive. Gabe Brown in North Dakota and Gail Fuller right out here in Kansas, and you can buy Gail Fuller's meat. And I'm a vegetarian, so I'm promoting meat here. If you buy meat that is grown properly, not in feedlots. Feedlots are out. That's where all the CO2 or the methane comes from. But out here, there are methanotropes in the soil, which eat up most of the methane that the cows emit. Let's see, where else am I going here? And then I want to mention, the reason I'm mentioning these guys is that they have tremendous amount of understanding of the microbial world. And this guy talks about the way the root hair takes in bacteria, takes the skin off the bacteria, and takes the nutrients out, and then ejects it back into the environment where it picks up more nutrients again, and it can make the trip many times. And this is called the Rhizophagy Cycle. Now, I would love to encourage you, and I am encouraging you, if it's working, to look at these people. I put the list of guys in the chat, and you can also find it at tracygarden.org. And those are earlier videos of these same people, and they produced a lot since. So put on your thinking caps and go to work, please. And Christine Jones here talks about plant diversity. And okay, plant diversity replaces fertilizer, and it replaces insecticides, replaces fungicide, displaces weeds, increases total production, and increases carbon. So what's wrong with that? Not a bit, not a thing. Okay, here's just to emphasize the fungal thing. I'm wetting this. This is over Casey Farm School, and I'm watering this. And then here is another shot of one of those holes that we had that go down through the tubes, and that's fungus. So we're producing a fungal rich compost here. Let's see what else. I think I talked about that. And now three of us, three Antioch Urban Growers, KC Farm School, and Sankara Farms are all going together in a grant. We've got a grant, a SARE grant, and we're going to do some testing on this Johnson-Su method and use it in 3 different gardens and see how it produces. So let's see. And then this is an educational grant. And this is pre-grant, but this is me talking to some students from UMKC, and they helped me build it, and they learned a lot. It seemed as though we were simpatico. And now I'm abandoning this for 3 minutes. I was going to give this 10 minutes because I think the most important thing is that we shift our worldview. This linear thing that we're working on, this thought process and even the scientific method, is taking one step at a time down a line. There's no line here. This happens all at once. And so we have to organize ourselves. So I suggest that you meditate, pray, do whatever you do to shift your perspective. If you can, about 50 years ago, I discovered presence, and presence is what is around us right now. Now, as I look at you guys, there are humans out here. There are conscious people. And because you're all here, you're strange. I mean, why are you paying attention to all this if you don't have a hunger to understand deeper than what you do understand? And what I guess I'm saying is, I've been reading a lot. You know, I got this guy in my background over here. He's the great peacemaker from the Iroquois. And so I've been reading a lot about these people who have direct knowledge. They don't have linear knowledge. They have direct knowledge. That is, they can do things that we don't think are possible because of our mindset. And part of our mindset comes from having all the women, the herbalists in Europe killed off by the people who had a more rigid way of looking at life. And we don't need to do that. We need to resurrect it. So I work a lot on I work as much on trying to make my conceptual world be subservient to the world of presence. And presence is what we feel when the fellowship that you feel in your worship services. That's part of presence. When you see a beautiful sunset, that's part of presence. So I think my time is up. And I wish I had spent more on this, but I didn't. And that's what it is.
Well, thanks, Marty and Stan. That was really excellent, very informative. Next week is going to be Gary Kunst to talk about, he's going to talk about the power and impact of storytelling, and he's a member of the Storytelling Network. So that should be interesting. So now we're going to have questions and answers. And the first question is from George Baggett.
Good morning. It's good to see both of you. My question is for Stan, do you see Missouri composting going to residential pickup or some sort of method where we have a drop-off center for food waste? Or do you think that's a little bit too difficult?
It's kind of happening already.
Really?
Compost Collective has 1,700 households. KC Can Compost is collecting from some other households, and another company out in Grandview called the Compost Collective. It's confusing, but the Compost Collective has been picking up yard waste independently all over the city for quite a few years, and they're now offering curbside food waste collection. So what's effectively happening is we're getting to test the market with other people's dime. They have to bring the food waste to us because food waste has to be composted at in a recorded and temperature controlled way. And so these efforts are underway. We had a grant proposal that went out to USDA that didn't get funded, but Casey Moe is working with us. We're talking about it all the time, and there's some stuff on the horizon that's pretty exciting about Johnson and Wyandotte counties also. So I see that we'll be increasing the food waste collection. It's obviously something that's on some people's minds. What's the fraction? I don't know. But we'd like to have regional food waste drop-offs, and we're working towards getting those. We have a machine called a kiosk, and if you sign up, we send you a credit card, and you swipe the card, open it up, and drop your food waste in and go away. It keeps the rats away, keeps the vandals away, and could be placed at almost any grocery store. That's a concept we look forward to implementing.
Okay, Jim Turner.
Yes, I think ultimately we need to become lovers of the soil biome. And a prelude to loving is understanding. And so I have found it interesting to read some about the function of each of the members of the soil web. And so as I put into chat, my note indicates that a reason that we like fungi is because it provides a channel by which the bacteria can move through the soil. And this facilitates movement of nutrients to where they need to be at the time they need to be there, I think. And furthermore, perhaps it even facilitates communication among the various elements. Recently, I saw on public TV a Nova production about slime, and slime have even the power of intelligence. They can sense what parts of the environment and how they can work within that environment. And furthermore, a slime community even has a memory. They can communicate the results of their experience. And so if that is happening with slime, I conjecture that perhaps that same sort of sharing can be happening within the bacteria and so on that are within the soil. So, and is there any comment about this?
Well, this is Craig. I just mentioned I can no longer use slime as an epithet about politicians. After hearing that.
Maybe if you coated the politicians with that slime, they would have intelligence.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. Mark Samborski, he was one of last week's speakers and very interesting. And so he now has a question or a comment.
Yeah, I know that Marty started his conversation with the fact that he was a grandfather. And I've had, say, 3 new grandkids great grandkids in the last 3 years. So the future is bright. But I wanted to ask Marty, or no, not Marty, actually Stan real fast about the in the plan to take over the planet or save the planet, rejuvenate the planet. What role do you see your guitar playing to the children and the children itself? Where do you see that going, sir?
Well, my desire would be to make some pretty good videos, because at this point in my life, those of you who knew me in the day in the 90s when I was making 140 school assemblies a year, those days are over. That's an exhausting way to spread the word. I'm proud of the time I did it, but I'm literally with the Food Too Good to Waste program and the grant with the state of Kansas. I'm zooming in and entertaining. Right behind this stand is a guitar, and these Zooms seem to work pretty well. So that's the one thing I would continue to do while I'm still here and can play, but I'd like to end up with some better videos of music videos of some of the songs, because they do inspire people and they're a lot of fun. Thank you for that.
I've got one slightly technical from Marty. Purely by happenstance, I would move to a new location or new old house and started to try to compost on a very small scale my food waste. So it wasn't working real well since I started when it was already late fall. So I started just putting it in one of these large plastic trash cans. And now looking at your bioreactor you were talking about, could I just punch a hole in the bottom of it and create a tube to put a tube in there and then let it suck in the air at the bottom? Would that help at all?
Well, you need to have, they say you need to have air 12 inches or less away from all the material. And if it's sludgy, you're going to have probably anaerobic conditions in some parts of it. Like what I made those composters out of was leaves, and the leaves are somewhat shredded and they break down, but the material around the outside of the bioreactor is air passes through it. You can take a hose and almost squirt the hose directly through the material. So that's the limitation I see. I can envision coming over to your house and helping build one of those things.
Well, we're renting, unfortunately, so, but at any rate, okay, we got other questions. Thanks, Marty. We've got other questions. Verna Crane?
Yes, I just did an event at another church where they bought a bunch of compostable plates and bowls, and this just drives me crazy. And then they throw everything into the trash. And that happens so many places, and they think they're doing the right thing, but is there any way to get some more information out there that's basically kind of wasting your money because it's not going to compost in the landfill?
Well, there's a whole lot of resistance, and that's why I feel that the most important part of our communication should be to challenge convenience, quick, fast. You know, I don't know what happened to us in Europe, but it wasn't good. And it's prediction and control. It's even down in science. There's a creative part of science, pure science they call it, and then there's this prediction and control part where we're trying to push it all around, and we don't really have a sense of what we're doing when we throw those compostables. And the last time I looked, I don't know what they're made of, but the last time I looked, they were made of bits of plastic that were hooked together with something that would break down.
I have some in my compost pile in my yard that I turn frequently because it keeps the next door chickens out of it a little bit. But
does it break down?
That I got, no, they're pristine. They put them in there in the fall, and they're dirty, but they're still totally intact. So it takes a commercial facility to chew up and do something with those, I think.
Stan, what do you say about that?
Yeah, really.
Many of them do compost well, but there's a really broad range. And not only that, were we to receive the contents of that party or event, we'd get the non-compostable forks with it too. And so what we get is a lot of contamination. That's why we made a $1 million investment in that little blue machine and the facilities to go with it, to get the contamination out of the food waste, because we can't count on consciousness to be there. And the food waste needs to come out now. So there are good compostables, but almost all of them. Chipotle bowls, if you tear them up, they'll compost in your backyard. I can say that, but they do work for me, and the rest of them are a mixed bag.
Okay, Jim Turner, you're up.
I have a Johnson Sioux bioreactor in my backyard, which hopefully is, it appears to be progressing, maybe not as fast as I'd like. But I would like to recapitulate some things that have been said over the last 2 Sundays, and that is the value of the Johnson Sioux bioreactor is that it can be done by farmers on a large scale as a way to shift off of dependence on commercial fertilizers, which are growing more expensive. And in effect, the Johnson Sioux is a do-it-yourself way to develop this good soil inoculant. Let's remember that Hilary Noonan last week, she operates an entity called Mad Hatter. And the value of a service like that is that she can fine-tune the bioinoculant that your particular yard requires. And so I would compare it to like a boutique as compared to a mass factory. And so there's people can choose from these ways to go at soil enrichment. That's all.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Stan.
Well, Johnson Sioux is not alone in that direction. First of all, 2 things. One of them, if you're really curious, Acres USA is a magazine that's been around since the 70s. It's founded in Raytown. And the title of this article is Transition Your Operation to Regenerative. Christine Jones and Nicole Masters are featured in this routinely. This is Nicole's book called For the Love of Soil, a really nice thing you might want to think about. But I'd like to talk about a new thing that just came over the horizon from Australia. It's called VRM Biologic. It works the same way in that you don't touch this compost. You get it the same kind of moist, but you put an inoculant on a large pile, 4,000 cubic yards, tarp it and leave it for 6 months. Unlike compost, which loses 65% in the air, this gains 10% through flocculation. It actually gets bigger. So it's a kind of compost that's high in fungus. It offers even more ease of production in volume for farmers. Plus it uses what they have and doesn't require a mix of anything. It can be manure, it can be human animal intestines, it can be bark and tree waste, all of those things. So there is a new machine on the horizon. Missouri Organic is going to be licensing this material soon, and we'll be using some of our byproducts to make this in bulk, and we'll be trying it. I have some samples. If you'd be interested in testing some material, I can get you a quart or a gallon of it to try on your own. So it's a 2-part, has a liquid with it. And that liquid is made out of liquid food waste. And we're the only company in the Midwest that has significant liquid food waste. So we'll be making the liquid for the rest of the country pretty soon. It's exciting stuff. And we're just learning all of this, how to do it well, how to get a consistent product. And I think there's a huge potential for this.
Okay, do we have other questions?
I really think that this stuff needs to ripple through the electorate. It needs to ripple through the people. The people have to get it somehow, and that's been my frustration for years as we've attempted to do Earth Days with sometimes with very minimal attendance. It's somehow there's some trigger that needs to happen And it doesn't seem that the terror of extinction is it. It seems like we're able to ignore that too. Don't quite know what it is, but anyway, here I am at that brick wall again. How do we move the needle on more of us weighing in on this in a passionate way? How do you engender passion in people? Passion for life. Life is a miracle. I mean, you know, I don't know how I got here, but here I are, and so all I can do is listen and try to take in what's around me.
That's one reason we do the forum.
Yeah, right.
Jim, is your hand still up? Do you have a final?
Yes, just one more thing. I think that the fact that the Russia's attack on Ukraine is said to have big impact on the exports of fertilizer and basic foodstuffs, and perhaps this will make farmers aware that a good alternative to commercial fertilizers is really needed for economic survival. So this may be a moment when more conversation is possible. So let's be alert to seize those opportunities.
Thank you. Good point. I want to thank all our speakers, Marty and Stan this week, and also Hilary and Mark from last week. It's been a very comprehensive discussion on this, and I think it's one of the best forums that I can recall.